Good afternoon, everyone. I see people are joining, so let's give 1 minute to wait. More people will join us. Okay, now it's 2 minutes over. I think we can just get started. And hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Maybe some good evening. Welcome to ABB Tech Talk for Energy Industry. Our topic for today is software as a service. And before I get started, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping so that you know how to participate in today's event. We have taken a screenshot of example of attendees interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desk. And you will have an opportunity to submit text questions during to the presenter by typing your question either into the Q&A or chat box at any time during this presentation. And we will collect all the questions and address them at the Q&A session at the end. And the reminder to all attendees that you are all in mute model. And today's presentation is being recorded and will be provided to you in the next couple of days. So just want you to know the information in this document is subject to change without any notice or should not be constrained by the commitment by ABB. And ABB holds all the copyright of this document. So let me just introduce my two colleagues, and they're gonna join me today. So first is my colleague Henrik Pettersen. He's the head of sales, digital service, and he's located in Oslo and working for the ABB in energy industry. Another speaker, Torgeir Inkerud. He is the head of digital operation. He's also located in Oslo and with ABB energy industry. So welcome to gentlemen. If you could both turn on your camera, that would be great.
Hi, Rita.
Hey, Henrik. Hey, Torgeir.
Hi, Rita. Hi, Henrik.
Hey.
Okay, myself, my name is Rita Weifu. I'm the marketing communication manager for Northern Europe within ABB Energy Industry. So before I hand over to Henrik, I would like to remind everyone, safety is always our first priority. So the target is zero harms. I know many of you are still listening this from home during your home office, are very familiar with surrounding, but please always obey your local rules of everything. And this applies especially when you are attending this tech talk during driving the car. I know some countries now it's easy of the COVID-19 restriction, but nevertheless, please always bear in mind, keep the reasonable distance with others. Okay, then without any further ado, let me just hand over to Henrik. Henrik, I'm going to make you as a presenter. Now,
Yeah,
over to you, Henrik.
Thank you, Rita. Let me just share my screen here.
Great.
Okay, so today we'll talk about my favorite subject in the world, software as a service. But we'll definitely be on more of the business side of things than a normal tech talk where we dig into technology. This will be more dig into business and the business aspects of things. So this is also why we call it the industrial software as a service revolution, because software service is something we're very familiar with in the consumer world. We'll have some examples of that, but in the industry, it's really in the early stages, which is exciting times for us. So we start this with 3 key takeaways. First one is that software as a service is a disruptive business model. And disruption means that it is taking over from another business model. So it is completely changing the way we do business in software. And it has completely changed and taken over the software consumer market. It is doing the same with enterprise IT at the moment, where it has a market share about 75–80%, according to some studies. And it will do the same for industrial OT software. And the main reason for that is that industrial OT software is being connected to internet through cloud technology. Second point that we would like you to take with you from this presentation is that the industry as a whole has certain business models or business processes that has worked for us in the industry for a very long time. The only problem with this is that these metrics and methodologies that we have doesn't really fit with the software as a service model, meaning that the whole value chain needs to change for this software as a service business model to really work and to really get the most out of this model. So we need new structures and new business processes and mindsets to get this to work. But luckily, the industry can learn a lot from best practices from consumer tech, where you have all these fantastic concepts coming up now, where you have agile, DevOps, DataOps, fail fast, design thinking, all these that most of you have probably heard a lot about already. So that was the key takeaways. The agenda for the presentation is that we need to look at software service, how it's different, how it works. We'll compare it to software as a product, which is the perpetual license model, where and then secondly, we'll talk about the innovation process behind this, which is a massively important part of this business model. We'll talk about what makes sense for us in ABB, and then finally, my good colleague Torgeir will talk about software as a service in operations. Now, to start off this, I think we should have a look at kind of the waves of digitalization in our personal lives. So back in the 80s or 90s, we got internet, right, on our home computers. That was a massive revolution in terms of how we bought things, access to information, and all of these things. Now, the second wave was our smartphones or internet on our phones. But now, at this moment, we're about here somewhere. We're connecting our things, our washer and dryer, our light bulbs, and we're using AI and machine learning algorithms to optimize our lives in some way. If it's let's say, optimize the power bill or getting song recommendations on Spotify based on some kind of algorithm. The point I'm trying to make here is that when we take this analogy and look at how does this apply into industry, we see that things have pretty much started at the wrong end in industry. We have started a couple of years ago when we went digital. Everybody's going to do digital, right? We started over here in the right side of the scale. We're talking about digital twins. We're talking about AI, machine learning algorithms. When we're not really connected to the internet, we don't have our digital foundation in place, or we didn't at least. And this is something that a lot of or some of our customers, at least the front runners, have realized recently. So they have worked a lot with digital foundation and getting their assets and their equipment connected to the internet through an edge device. So that is something that has kind of been introduced. And the business model, you guessed it, software as a service. So let's look at how this is different and how it works. In your personal lives, you experience this concept every single day, right? You have your apps on your phone, you have your Netflix on your TV. But what you don't see is this team of engineers and marketing people that is continuously working with that service. You don't see that because it's a digital service. But this is happening in the background. There is a team of let's call them experts or engineers that is continuously working, and that's how we work with our digital services. And this is the loop we're talking about, the DevOps loop, where you continuously plan and code and build and test, release new software that you deploy and operate and monitor. So it's a complete loop. And that's how we do things. And this is what's happening on your phone whenever you get an update on your app, right? You want to upgrade to the newest version of Audible, then this is this loop that's going on in the background. To truly understand the difference between software as a service and what we're used to, we can kind of try to list a couple of these business aspects around software as a product, which is the previous version or the previous business model, and then software as a service after that. So when you have a software as a product, you have a product. That's what you're selling as a vendor, and that's what you're buying as a customer. You're buying a product with certain specs, features, documentations, functions, and whatnot, that the vendor of that software promise will work in a certain manner. You even give them a warranty on how it's supposed to work. Now, this is a very familiar concept that all of the whole of industry is familiar with. As a vendor, we need to make sure that it works 100% as promised, meaning that we need a long and rigid innovation process. We need to make sure we cover our costs, because it's all about delivering after or up until a project deadline where you're supposed to hand over to the customer, right? So it's a very cost-driven model. It's not a user or customer value-driven model. There's a project delivery where you have local installations and maintenance. There is normally a middleman in sales. We have customized purchasing and bidding processes, meaning that they're typically purchasing from the customer side and the bidding on the vendor side, and these are negotiations and going back and forth. The vendors prioritize based on project size, meaning that large projects are more important than smaller projects, and a lot more of these business aspects. But if we look at software as a service, this is where it gets a little bit difficult to understand, because you're not buying a product. You're buying a time-limited access to the vendor's software, operated and monitored by the vendor 24 hours, 7 days a week over the internet in the cloud. There is no warranties on how it works. It is what it is. So as a consumer or as a user, you have pretty much just one alternative or two alternatives. You can either continue with the service because this is really good, it brings you value, or you can cancel because it doesn't. So that's your power, and that's a tremendous power as a user. But when it comes to the business aspects around this software as a service business model, things look completely different. As a vendor, we need to make sure it creates value for the end user from day one, preferably, because that's ultimately what decides if the customer would want to continue with this model. We continuously work towards automating the time from, let's say, an interested customer to a customer can actually try. So we work towards this try before you buy functionality. We innovate along with the end user needs. The end user needs are changing as the industry is changing. So we need to continuously stay relevant with the service. And this brings me to the next point, which is we need to test and learn and improve everything continuously. We need to make sure what we have is really good enough and accepted in the marketplace before we invest in scaling it out. We standardize all the components centrally, both technically and commercially. We'll look into that on the next slide. And it's a volumes game for us, meaning that we need a certain amount of customers to make this profitable from our side. But that's how this business model works. So the point is here, these two business models are really completely different business models. You cannot merge one with the other. And there is not really a hybrid. So we'll look into the deployment. This is something we're very familiar with in software as a product business model. This is where you have local deployments, local installations of a certain software with all kinds of different versions of that software around the globe. And there are all kinds of different service level agreements around the globe connected to that one software. And that is very, very inefficient if you can do it like this. If you can have a centralized delivery unit where you're doing the continuous development as well, then and the customer are able to access the same software, the same version of that software, the whole value chain become much, much, much more effective, efficient. And just this is a very important clarification from me, because I've seen this so many times now, and there are vendors out there talking about software as a service that doesn't really have a software as a service. They really just have a software as a product, and they've divided that license price with a number of months, and they call it software as a service. But it's not the financial thing. As we've been through, it's a completely different business model. And the innovation process is a very important part of this. This is the gate model where probably most of you have heard a lot about or are familiar with. This is the product innovation model. It is something that has brought us brilliant products over the years. However, when it comes to software, this one is obsolete. It is obsolete. It works for a product where you need strict limitation or strict rules, and you need to have very rigid product safety products, for instance. This is an important model. But when it comes to software, there are completely different new models now in terms of development. And this is a very high level way of showing how we work with our customers, making sure that we are doing an agile innovation process around our software. So what we basically have, we have three things. We have the value pitch, or the value proposition in terms of a presentation, right? And then we have a MVP or the software itself, technology. And then finally, we have the offer, or the commercial aspects of things, the price and the terms and conditions and all of these things. We work with these three elements continuously until we've had success a number of times where we can do a much more data-driven approach. So this works in the nail before you scale methodology. So this is the nail, and this is where we scale. The data-driven innovation process is where we are actually innovating on our solution based on actual usage and customer data usage. And this also makes us available to do business development in, let's say, in more of an internet-based business, meaning that we can, instead of having PowerPoint presentation for the value pitch, we can do videos, we can do online tutorials and whatnot, and we can offer trials instead of having a customer to need to buy a large project where you have installation and configuration. And of course, you have the possibility of doing e-commerce in this model. An example of this is a brilliant partner, Okia, where this is what you're seeing here is the landing page of the users of Draugen, which is a large oil and gas asset out of the coast of Norway. They have some applications, some software service applications from ABB that they're subscribing to, and they have access through this portal here. They can create their own dashboards, and they can create their own trends, and they can use the software through this portal. The point is that this is the user. This is the access point of the user, meaning that when we as a vendor want to do innovation and have this direct access to the user, it is fantastic to be able to do this. For instance, we see that this user, let's call her Susan, she is a relevant user for this new application that we're working on. So we can, through the digital platform, offer this as a trial version for her without speaking to any cheeky sales person like myself. So she can just go into this straight away and test this application. Second part we're working on when it comes to data-driven innovation is machine learning applications. And in ABB, we have a lot of these great initiatives where we're working on AI and machine learning technologies. But the point is really that we need a digital foundation in place before we can create this value. So this is an example of that where we saw that there was some oscillations in the gas train yesterday. Would you like us to investigate this further because we have seen it before? So this is machine learning in an application we have. So what makes sense for us in ABB in terms of the digital? Let's say everybody has a digital agenda nowadays, right? And they want to make sure we create some value from digital. Now we have to ask ourselves the same question as any other company out there. We need to ask the key question: how can we succeed in digital for the shareholders of ABB? And this question again ends up with a number of other questions, like what are we good at? What are the expectations in the marketplace? What are the key global trends in our domain? How can we create customer value that are more customer value than our competitors? How can we capitalize on this value creation? What should be our business model, basically? So there are a lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves. And as of today, we have a couple of answers to this. In ABB as a whole, we have many answers to this because ABB is a very, very big company with a lot of different great offerings. But as of today, our answer is that we should have a market-leading industrial Internet of Things gateway, meaning an edge or a streaming service. And we should have relevant content, digital content in form of software as a service applications that create value, that create customer value, but they're built in our core domain, meaning power and automation. So taking, like say, building our competency into software as a service applications. And as an example, to show you that, we have now about 30 sites that has purchased connectivity from ABB in terms of a edge streaming service. But on top of this, we have applications, end user applications that where the user is actually creating operational value with the use of our digital services, as you see here. Now there is a middle layer, the digital platform or the digital operations layer, and it's a very, very, very important part of all of this. But as in this model, this is an enabler for the value creation, and this is not something that we go out and sell into the market. However, there are some customers that are looking for this type of functionality to be, let's say, to be supplied by a vendor such as ABB, and of course, we're able to do that as well. So with that, I think I will hand it over to my great colleague, Torgeir. Let me just give you the.
Eric, I can see that. No worries.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just share my screen. Rita, did you make me a presenter?
Yeah, I'm making you a presenter.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Henrik. Thank you for that introduction. So I'm going to talk about software as a service in the operational phase, how we're doing it. But before I do that, I wanted to talk a bit about this year's Emmy Awards. So in 2021, the 73rd Emmy Awards saw that the online video platforms won more than half of the Emmys. The Crown and Queen's Gambit, they won 11 Emmys each. The Mandalorian, Ted Lasso, 7 Emmys each. Netflix in total had 44 Emmys. This is a tied record with the CBS from back in 1974. I think this truly shows that the streaming platforms have disrupted the television industry. They now attract the biggest actors and have the biggest productions. Some of the key elements behind this, I think it's important for us to understand and are similar to what we're seeing in the software business. It is the access to the content. I have internet on my phone, I have it at home, I can take it with me when I travel, and I can pick and choose what I want to see. So that's where the business model comes in. And of course, the platform has to have great content. So without the content and the connectivity, I wouldn't be subscribing and paying Netflix or Apple or Disney for their services. And actually, just last week, my daughter, who's 14, asked me if we still had Disney Plus at home. And I said, yes, we do. And she said, Daddy, we can actually cancel that because I'm not using it and because there is not really a lot of content that I'm interested in. That's what I did. I canceled it. Of course, I only lost a month's payments, which is not a lot of risk in this sense. So why am I talking about this? It's because I think it's quite similar to what we're seeing in the software business. So access to data for the end user is the foundation for success in digital transformation. Also, the software as a service business model, it really incentivizes us as a supplier to create great content. And for the consumer or customer, it reduces the financial risk. If we combine these two with great people and technology, then maybe we can create a similar success as the Crown, but just in the industrial digitalization world. So I want to talk first about the access to data. That's really important. It's the foundation. It's what Henrik also talked about. So this is a snapshot of our data being streamed from different sites into our digital platform. I'll switch to the live version. So this now is live. See that we are monitoring all the data coming in from the edges or from other cloud data lakes, such as the customer's own data lakes, being written into our system. So having that data available is really a key. So here we have data coming from many different types of sources. Some of these are quite large industrial automation systems where we are receiving over 1,000 data points per second. Some are smaller industrial complexes, and some are complexes with just a few sensors, few machines, and few data points coming in. So this is something that our team is having on their walls all the time, monitoring. Is the customer online? Is the service up and running? And what should we do to make sure that it stays like this? So we like to call this the pulse of our system. It's data made available for content creation, both by the end users, by ABB, but also third parties. I wanted also to show you some of the content that can be created. So what I'm showing you now is just demos. I'm not showing any customer systems. So this is an example where we have built a platform for looking at equipment efficiency. So this is enabled again by data being high quality data being streamed into our system and having a data platform where we can build content. So here we're looking at different KPIs for a production line or a set of production lines and comparing those against each other. It's really valuable insight to be able to plan where should I produce my next batch of my product and where would I likely have issues. So from this, I can drill down into one of the sites and really go deep into how is this site performing? How are the different production lines performing? And really start to drill down and make sure that I optimize my production and my value creation. So here you can see the KPIs broken down into different more detailed levels and also seeing why am I losing production. So this is one example. Another example, which is a bit closer to home for me, is within the electrical condition monitoring segment. So here you see a single line diagram, which you probably see in most automation systems where there is electrical equipment. But here the focus is on condition of the equipment. So here the single line is augmented with condition statuses. Right now I have 6 equipment which are in the category maintenance required. And I have one that is out of specification. So from this dashboard again, I can drill down and look at, either I can drill down directly to that piece of equipment and start looking at the data. See, why is this in this status? And what should I do? What should I plan of maintenance? Or I can look at this from a more holistic perspective and see how are these types of statuses distributed across my equipment list. Also from here, just drill down to the equipment itself and see here, it's really important to have good quality data, but augmented by, I wouldn't say machine learning, but algorithms that can tell you something about what's happening with the machine and what should you plan to do. So that's some of the content that's made available. And of course, behind that is a lot of technology. So what I've shown you now is streaming of data using edges, and the data platform is a set of software components and infrastructure that we have built to be able to stream data from OT and IT systems into the cloud, store it securely in data lakes, and make it available either through APIs, could be third-party consumers, could be to a third-party cloud, or it can be through end-user applications, such as the dashboards that I showed you, trending tool, or domain-specific applications, some of which Henrik showed earlier. We also use the same type of technology and infrastructure to do our day-to-day monitoring and maintenance of that system. So technology is one part of it, but you also need people. And in order to manage all of this, you need to have the right type of people with a set of roles and responsibilities to make sure that we manage this over time, make sure that the content is the right content that we should have, that it works, and that it evolves over time and stays valuable and adds more value to the end users. So customer success is something that the whole team should be interested in and should care about, but we also have a customer success lead that takes care of this across the business, across our customer base. The technology needs to be taken care of, needs to be maintained. So that's our platform operations manager and our DevOps engineer and DevOps engineers. So their daily job is to make sure that the platform works, monitor it, fix issues, and deploy new updates. To make sure that we stay relevant and create great content, we need end users, we need people who can talk to end users, create mock-ups or illustrations that explain how we would like to solve their problem. And we need an architect who's able to put this into a context of a roadmap and make sure that we don't break the technology in the background. So I would like to show one of these functions and how we do that on a day-to-day basis. So platform operations and DevOps engineers, their responsibility, as I've said, is to make sure that the platform works all the time. So for that, we have a system developed where we can monitor the health of the system. So here, a pod on this side, it's a piece of software running in the cloud with a set of resources such as CPU, RAM, or storage. And we've instrumented all of these pods with metrics. These metrics are gathered and presented, as I showed you earlier, with the data online status in a dashboard that we can track. We also take care of the logs. So if there's something going on inside the software, we can pull that out and have that as a troubleshooting environment for our DevOps engineers. But we're not sitting constantly monitoring this, just staring at it. So we're using software as a service, Slack, and have some KPIs, some key performance indicators telling us that something is not healthy in the system. Could be overuse of the CPU. It could be that we're running out of storage on a specific instance, or it could be that we're experiencing a lot of errors in the applications. That's a good way for us to start to investigate, fix an issue, and deploy out to the customer and update when the problem is solved. Example of how this looks. So this is just a snapshot from our Slack channel where we're looking at different messages coming from this system. So one message here is that our database has a usage, the space alert. So 80% of the volume is used, and we should plan for a size increase. So in addition to the alert, which is generated automatically from the system, we also have some troubleshooting help that is part of our DevOps Bible, as we call it, to help anyone who is in charge of this system to really work efficiently with it. So you see here, this alert comes in, and when it's fixed, it's automatically sends in a new alert saying that everything is okay. Another alert here is an online status. This comes from the dashboard that I showed you earlier, where you saw all the different customers. And again, some troubleshooting help and the online status shown here, coming back online. So this is just one example of how we do operation of software as a service. It needs to be flexible, it needs to be fast, and it needs to be around the clock all the time. So to summarize, digital operation of software as a service for us, it's about people and technology making content available to end users and with a business model that fits both our customer and ABB as a company. So Henrik, did you have a summary?
No, I think that's it. Rita, I don't know if did you get any questions for us or?
Yeah, absolutely. I got some questions. I mean, actually, first of all, really great presentation. Several people also left messages. Say it's a very nice presentation, very interesting subject. So thank you both for the great presentation. So I have a few questions I would like to ask. First is this, just let me read. So is this SaaS model-based solution available to buy in Finland and ready to start to use after it's a project that's already implemented?
Yeah, so one of the key challenges of the software as a service business model is distribution between countries. Because we're talking about data has to move from one country to another. Imagine, let's say you have a Finnish customer and we're looking to deploy a software as a service or to offer a software as a service to this Finnish customer. We need to establish an edge in Finland locally that streams data to a centralized place. So we need to make sure that the country or we're able to efficiently communicate with that country. Now, when we're talking about Norway and Finland, I think the problem is quite low. So we don't have too much problem with that. But of course, there is a challenge when you have countries where they have stricter limitations to data traveling across country borders.
Okay, but we are all in the EU or EEA, so we are okay. So which means, yes, it's easy. And because he also asked us to share more, so we will definitely contact you for that. Yep. And second question is, how would be the future of substation automation with your today's approach?
Can you repeat that, Rita? How would be the future
How
of?
would be the future of substation automation with your today's approach? Actually, I could let this Mr. This guy who actually asked that question. Ahmed, actually, I'm unmute you. You can speak up because this is your question.
Hi. Thank you, gentlemen, for having this fabulous meeting today. I really enjoy it. I'm Arman. I'm Sales Vice President of the Brodersen from Denmark.
Ahmed, would you mind to speak up because we're hard
Yeah.
to hear you?
Can you hear that?
Yeah,
Now
we heard you.
Okay, so actually we are somehow a colleague in same sectors.
Yeah.
We are manufacturing the RTUs, so we have many things to share in later. But the main question is, okay, this is an approach that we facing also we receive the same signals from some regions that we're active in. But at the end, there are many tasks, or let's say there are many concerns for end users to moving from their own premises to cloud-based services.
Yeah.
It could be any service, SCADA as a service, or whatever we call it. But at the end, how we should overcome to the challenges like the cybersecurity, for example, a complicated tasks like a load shedding application, which is inherently, it would be definitely inside any substation. It would be very many new chapters for the smart grids, for the DER, distributed energy resources. I mean, at the end, there are many questions for especially for, let's say, for power sector. Have you ever been through any, let's say, internal discussion? How would you like to address these needs for those end users? Because we couldn't find an answer actually. We have many clients that insist to have their own assets and to manage whatever they have. So
yeah, we see the same thing. Torgeir, maybe you want to take it from a technical perspective, but from a commercial perspective, there's definitely a concern whenever you speak with a new customer about, yeah, what about my data? It's my data, right? You cannot take my data, and need to have it controlled in our basement and whatnot. So
it's about the data, and it's about the performance.
Yeah, so if I can just chime in here. So Henrik and I don't necessarily agree on this point. But I'll say my piece, and Henrik can comment.
Okay, yeah,
okay.
It will be interesting to
So
hear.
I think you need to look at the use case. So not every use case is a cloud-based solution. So you talk about load shedding. It's about milliseconds, right? So you need to look at the use case. Maybe an edge can be used, and you can still have the benefit of having some of the monitoring functions, some of the engineering functions, but maybe the function has to run really close to the source. So there's no really that there's just one answer. So you really need to look at the use case. And not
completely agree.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
The thing is, we have had many of these discussions with our customers, but I think the point of today's presentation is that software as a service, it's not a cloud-based business model, but it is an internet-based business model, meaning that we as a vendor need to have control over the application or the service at all times. It can actually be installed locally, as Torgeir says. However, the business model works that we install our software at the premise of the customer.
To explain that, so what we saw today is all the data coming from the edges, they are at the site, right? But what we have to have, if we should be able to do this in an efficient manner and provide this as a service, is that we have to have connection with it. We have to be able to get metrics, get the logs out of that system, and be able to update it in a efficient manner, not having a project and having all of these boundaries that we have to overcome in the more traditional sense. So if that's possible, then I still see that we can make a lot of applications that run on the edge, close to the equipment, but also then gaining the benefit of having both that software as a service business model on the edge, but also having possibility to stream some of the data at least to the cloud for monitoring purposes and planning purposes.
Super, thank you, gentlemen. I have another question actually, and it's also related to customer readiness or something. But since I'm working at ABB, I'm your colleague, so I know that actually we have quite good type of collaboration with different various in energy with and customer within energy industry, like water, power, and also the oil and gas. So did you see this trendy sort of like this is a total transformation that the customer will start to move on to more, I would say, get used to this type of or buy into this type of solution? Because like if we look at 30 or 40 years ago when I was a kid, I would have never even imagined that today we're so convenient, just one phone get everything. I just subscribe and I stop paying, then everything stopped. Do you see this customer will be more easily, how do you say, to accept this? It's just a matter of time, but we are on the right track for everything.
I think if I can take this, I think we have already seen this transformation has started, Rita, and the front runners in digital in the industry and actually across industry, they are moving towards accepting this business model as the preferred business model. We even get some RFQs now that is asking specifically for software as a service. So this is definitely coming, and it's again back to the presentation. It is a disruptive business model. We need to understand this. It means that it is taking over from the traditional business model. So it is a disruption, and it's happening right now. We are in the early stages, no doubt, and the customers are lagging a bit on their side. There are some that are really mature, or at least more mature than others. But it's still early days, but it's coming. Definitely, it's coming.
That's great to hear because I think those benefits it really can provide and all the how to say the customer or potential or whatever companies that really because I think especially this kind of business model together is actually win-win, at least from my understanding point of view from today's presentation. I think I have another question, but you already answered. It's about data privacy because the tour guide already said it's not means everything is on cloud. Actually, it's also sitting in local. So they have the customer can protect their own data, and we want to misuse or it's their data and they're being protected. I think with that, I don't think we have more questions. But however, for all the participants, if you have any question, please feel free to send it to us, to reach us out. And you receive when the invitation, they have our email address. Feel free to reach us out. And before we go, and Henrik and Torgeir, any final word you would like to share with all the audience today?
Well, I like to share that I think this is super exciting for all of us in the industry. As we're talking about the final question from you, this is something new. This is completely changing the way we work, and it's driven by business incentives. It's not like we want to do some kind of a tech, but we want to improve the business part of things, and that's what's the key driver behind this. And that's what the key driver behind what I do and what Torgeir does, what we work with. It's the customer value that comes first.
Yeah, I can just say I completely agree with Henrik there, and for me it's really exciting. So when I started many years ago, I wanted to be close to the customer. I wanted to be close to the end user. This business model allows me to do that. It forces me to do that. I don't want to create something that is not valuable. I want to really help to contribute to the end user's needs. It's really great for us as people as well. Inspiring.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I think that's where it ties into ABB's purpose. We create value for our customers. Again, thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Fantastic presentation, really eye-open, and I'm very excited now. And also thank you all the audience and be with us and Armin. And yeah, thank you for your last comment. It's just a beginning and we have to build it together. That's fantastic. Great. Then thank you, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.